Yeah, this is pissing me off that.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Run It Back, episode number 91. I'm your host, Menelik Fernandez. I think we got a little bit of Marc at the beginning there, just adjusting, but that's okay. I'm very happy to welcome you to episode number 91 as we continue along, just chugging. So the premise of Run It Back remains the same as it has for the past couple of years now. We take teams that have played previously and we run it back, so to speak, where we talk about game preparation, we talk about in-game adjustments, we talk about like sort of how we coach our players and how much feedback we provide and when we provide it, all those fun things that are the intricate details of coaching that we love so much. So today is no different. We're looking at Chino Hills versus Roosevelt High School. Roosevelt High School. I said that weird. Sorry. The
No
game
worries.
is from December 11th, 2021. And similar to many of my prior episodes, I have a coach from the game joining us. Coach Marc Hart was an assistant at Roosevelt. And coach, if you give me a second, I'll try my best to give you a warm welcome to the show. I think Marc is probably best known for being the creator, the founder of System Basketball, which is an excellent resource if you were trying to develop your basketball knowledge. I, of course, will put in the link in our description for anybody who's listening later on. And is also currently on pause from the Basketpedia podcast, but it's a great podcast. You should tune in, catch some of those episodes. He was an assistant coach, as I mentioned, at Roosevelt High School, but has been in and around basketball for 25 years as a head coach, assistant coach, etc. Coach, thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. I'm happy to have you on. It's really a pleasure to be able to sit down with you and pick your brain. Welcome to Run It Back.
I'm happy to be here. It's always a little bit different being on the other side of the camera. I'm
For
I'm used
sure.
to I'm used to being the one asking the questions, so it's always a pleasure uh, to get the questions and be on these. So I appreciate you having me.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. So let get me started here. Give me a little bit of background of Roosevelt High School, like what division, what level of competition. Give us sort of all the background that maybe somebody who's an outsider wouldn't know about, where you coach and what everything is like in that system there.
That's funny because I was looking through our schedule and we played Division One, which is the highest starting level, and then they'll pick out the eight best teams and they'll
Right.
segment those out to what they call an open division, which is the elite of the elite, the modern days, the Sierra Canyons, and I would say as far as Roosevelt High School, we're Division One. I think we're the largest school in California with like 4,500 students.
Wow.
And I was looking at it, and in our league, we play Corona Centennial, Corona Santiago, Martin Luther King, Corona, and Norco. And as of this morning, Santiago's playing for a CIF championship, so top team in that division, Division Two, and then Centennial lost in the open division to Sierra Canyon, who we played earlier in the season,
Right.
and then we lost in Division One in the first round playoffs to Long Beach Poly, who I didn't check this morning to see if they won last night, but they were in the semifinals, so they could be playing the championship. So as far as competition of who we played, Sierra Canyon's ranked ninth in the United States.
Right.
We played them. Corona Centennial won the regional the year before. They beat Mater Dei. So the competition level is about the highest you can get. And some people will argue, as far as a public school league, we're one of the top in California.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And then give us a little bit of the structure of the season on the women's side there. How many games would be in a whole season? And then you talked a little bit briefly about the playoffs. How many, you did mention how many teams advance. Just sort of give me an idea of how many games you would play and when that season encompasses.
Typically, you're allowed to play 28 contests. So
Okay.
in the regular season, in a normal year, non-COVID type situation where
Right.
people are scrambling, but typically it's November that the season typically begins. I want to say around mid-November, and then regular season ends early February. But if you're competing for uh, a sectional championship, you're playing in February. It will end, but then state playoffs pretty much pick up in March. So to win it all, you gotta win about 9 basketball games to win a state championship. You got to go through the regional and then win four to five more games for a state championship. So when you
Wow.
do look at high schools where I go, oh, we won regional, and I go, you won 2 games.
Right.
Here it's 32 team bracket, and so for our division, if you're in open, it's 4 games. So a little bit less. If you, the magic thing about being an open, you automatically qualify for the state because they put you in that gauntlet of 8 teams. So
Right.
sometimes you're going to lose, and then it's really weird. State, they may put you in different divisions. You may not be in open anymore. You'll go back down to a different classification. So it's wild and crazy. But long story short, 28 regular season games, and you can play up to around 38 total basketball games for a season.
Love it. All right, so we're playing in December here. You did
Uh-huh.
play this team a couple times throughout the year. Chino Hills, I know the name even up here in Canada, obviously, just
The balls.
yeah, obviously,
I coached against them from a different school, so that's kind of ironic. Yeah.
that's funny. Yeah, so let's talk preparation at this point in the season. You guys are using Huddle. I noticed obviously when you sent me the game. So talk to me about your scouting process. How many games are you watching, if anything? Are you doing a paper scout? Are you focusing on yourself? Are you sending them clips from games? Are you filming yourself? Like, what's your process for
Well,
preparing?
it was tournament time, so tournament time's kind of crazy and hectic. We played. What did we play that week? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay,
So we've had a Friday night game, and then we turned around and played again Saturday. So there was
right,
real no prep time. It was our knowledge of asking other coaches, seeing some game film,
right,
um, because the way the tournament was set up was it was two pools of four. We were at one location, they were at a different location. We were playing at the same time, so we couldn't even go like watch them play to get an idea of what they do. So it was word of mouth, and kind of at that point we were just we do us type of mentality, and
right.
we'll make in-game adjustments based upon how they're what they're doing against us. It's kind of how we approach that game.
So at this point, is this the first, second, third time you're playing? I think you told me you
This
played
was
them
this was actually the first time we played them.
the first time you played them.
Yeah.
And what kind of feedback when you're asking other coaches are you asking for? What are you specifically keying in on? Is it players? Is it actions? What's sort of your process through that method?
For me, because we press,
Yep.
I'm more worried about ball handlers
Yep.
and shooters. Are they? And if I can get how they kind of break a press, that's great. But typically, I'm figuring that out in the first quarter,
Right.
how they break it, and then make
Okay.
adjustments and tell our players, "Hey, this is how they keep breaking it. Let's not let them keep doing it. Let's make an adjustment here."
For sure. For sure. And with this particular team, who were the standouts in your mind? Obviously, it's interesting because I have a specific question about this because of the big girl. But for a team that presses a lot,
Mhm.
do you worry about bigs at all, or because you can really take them out of a game if you're pressing all the time?
Not really, but if we went over the third game, um, we let her catch the ball. We didn't pressure her, and
Right.
she throws a 70-foot pass with a minute 20 seconds that we thought was going to kill us for a layup because they went 1-4 high across 1-4
Right.
across, and she
Right.
just came up. We let her do that, but because she's so big and strong, she just turned and threw it to a player streaking, and I'm like, so we had to adjust after that. But typically, the reason why we press, we are a Division 1 school, but the biggest girl on our team's 6 foot,
Right.
and it was my first year coaching girls, and I do like the press, and I think You can take advantage on the girls' side of it a little bit more than you can on guys because they can't finish as well, and typically they can't throw the long pass as well as the guys' game. So we needed to figure out how to speed up this game,
Right.
and we figured it was a good matchup because we like to play fast and they like to control tempo, and pound it inside to her. She is a UNLV commit,
Right.
and we did a really good job in this game. The other two games, she did a really good job against us because she does foul out in this game.
Interesting. So going back to the pressing and the ball handling, I'll ask you during the film as well. But what's sort of your goal with pressing? Are you doing it more for time? Are you doing it for deflections? Are you doing it to sort of throw teams out of the rhythm? Because one thing that I really noticed from doing this show, and obviously from coaching too, is that like a lot of the time, if a team works on their half court offense in practice 60% of the time, 70% of the time, that's completely out of the window and they don't know what to do when they play. So what are sort of your goals?
Um, it's twofold. Most of the time, it's to speed them up. Our whole goal typically is to make their primary ball handler make as many decisions as possible.
Right.
Put pressure on them for the full game. Typically, my philosophy is we press for 28 minutes and then do whatever we need to do in the last four to win the
Right.
game to have a fatigue factor. And if you've coached youth basketball or high school basketball, if you can get to that second or third ball handler or their backup point guard, it's to your advantage. And
For sure.
also, people don't like playing against pressure. They say they do, but we're a pressing team, and when teams press us, we struggled against it, even though we
Right.
do it. We just want to make it uncomfortable. Ideally, we want to make it fast and create turnovers from it and stuff like that. But it's more about putting pressure and a wear down factor and making that player, can they make those decisions for a full game with pressure on them, and will they be able to make their free throws, will they be able to do what they were doing in the first three quarters and make fatigue a factor.
Love it. Do you do a lot of drills then basically in terms of after you get a steal or a deflection, working on the offensive transition side? Because I mean, obviously, you are known as a big proponent of the dribble drive system. You're an
Mm-hmm.
excellent teacher of it. Uh, you don't always flow right into that when you guys get
Correct.
steals, turnovers. You're headed to the basket. So, what's like your skill development like in your practices when you do get what you want out of it and your pace of play is faster? What are you guys working on?
Well, pretty much in our drills and stuff, for the most part, if we get a steal, we let them play. You know how most coaches would blow it dead. So our all of our drills are built upon the dribble drive and the press play hand in hand. It's not necessarily, hey, we're going to specifically do a drill to work on it. We do set up things like pass escapes, dribble escapes. How do we defend that? We do a back tip drill, if you will, like you were saying, where we'll
Right,
tip it and we get it to a player, and then we do a conversion so they get out and fill lanes. We talked a lot about being your own outlet, and
right,
then hugging sidelines. I know you're a big proponent of Brent Tipton, so we've been messing around with a lot of that terminology, hugging
right.
sidelines, filling, and
Hey,
not
I'm sorry. Can I
necessarily.
get a second and do a shameless plug in there? Brent, get on my show, man. It's been a year I've been chasing you. What's going on?
I'll,
Sorry,
I'll
Mark.
send I'll send him a message for you and
For
say,
sure,
hey.
appreciate it. He's actually a good buddy. I really like Brent a lot.
Yeah,
Had the good fortune of meeting him in person last year. We hung out a bit,
it's
and
funny. I think I bring his name up. I've done about 5 or 6 of these podcasts, and I think every time when these questions come up, his name, because he's had a big influence on a lot of people during the
right,
pandemic,
right,
and people didn't know who he was. People didn't know who I was, and
right.
that was what's great about it. So,
Yeah, it's been great for sure. Let me jump in because I got some questions that interest me for sure. When pressing, do you worry about matchups when you fall back into the half court? And if you do not, does that mean that you give all of your players little tidbits on all of the players? Or do you actually try to preserve some sort of matchup when you get back into the half court?
That's a great question. I do worry about them,
Mhm.
but within the style that I like to do the pressing,
Right.
we switch all interchanges, switch screens, switch.
Right.
So literally on the board, I don't say you have this player, you have this player, you have this player because you don't know who you have.
Right.
Um, we try. I mean, it's high school basketball. Not everybody. I mean, even in the NBA, people aren't the same of defensive abilities, but the switch. What's the saying? An open miss. Shoot, I just brain farted.
That's
But
all right. It happens.
no, I know what it is. It's open mismatches don't beat you. Open shots do.
Right.
So um, that's kind of the philosophy behind it. And then if you look at your team, and most people that probably listen to the podcast, that's a high school coach. I mean, I've never been blessed with 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", on the guy's side, or even a 6'3" girl yet, 6'4". That's a post.
Right.
So if you're all 6 foot to 5'8", 5'7", then switch everything.
Right.
I
Becomes
mean,
interchangeable.
I mean that takes practice time away from your opponent that they have to work on switching and so forth and so on, and it's difficult to go against. So mismatches, I like the last 4 minutes, like I was talking about earlier. Yeah, now we might say, hey, our best defender is going to be here. Call timeouts, whatever. Hey, we don't want you switching. You stay home. You
Right.
fight through it. We may adjust how we defend in the last 4 minutes.
How about miss versus make? Obviously, on most makes, you're going to be set up into your press. You're going to do what you guys want to do. When they get a defensive rebound or a steal and they're busting out, being their own rebound or sorry, being their own outlet or outletting the ball, what's sort of your defensive philosophy in terms of how you build out your defense and defensive transition?
Well, we want to. I mean, typically, if we're doing miss shot press, we want to jam, and hopefully prevent that just bust out LeBron type,
Right.
Draymond Green type role that everybody's starting to go to, which has made pressing on misses much harder than the traditional team that just outlets the basketball. To be
Right.
honest with you, so we want to contain that as fast as possible and jam it within like a second. If they're out and running, then we call it the umbrella zone, which is probably about the 28-foot hash and in to the baseline, the coaching
Right.
box.
Right.
And we want to form an umbrella there. And with the advent of how people shoot, that's where we want to pick up. Most teams were always taught run to the paint and then come out. You've watched, you know it. Teams will shoot threes in transition, 1-on-3 now, and that's where the scouting part knows who are the shooters, even though we're switching everything.
Right.
So missing out of press, we got to know, okay, shooters running right lane. When they drive, we're going to fake and stay. We're not going to just give help there. We rather shoot a floater than that easy one pass away kick. So we want to form an umbrella and then slow them down and then not allow in transition missed shots or even made shots. The things we don't want to give up are layups and rhythm threes. If if anything else happens out of that, I'm okay with. But if it's a
Right.
layup or a rhythm three, I'm not happy.
Gotcha. You guys on the offensive side, how many to the glass are you sending? And do you how do you sort of preserve transitioning into your press or your defensive transition there out of that? You mentioned
90 Yeah, 90% of the time it's four to the glass on a perimeter shot, a 3-point shot or a perimeter shot. It should be a 3-pointer if it's perimeter. If it's outside the paint between that and there, I'm a little upset. But a 3-point shot, shooter's getting back, is coming back to like top of the key area, safety valve, if you will, and the other four are crashing.
Okay.
When we're playing a Sierra Canyon of the world, Corona Centennial of the world. We are probably making some adjustments because we got burned on it a few times this year because they have the players that can be your own outlet, if you
Right.
will,
Right.
and other teams don't. So there are some adjustments that we will make based upon it, but status quo usually is floor go to the glass.
Love it. In terms of what you delivered to your girls in terms of like a we want to run, we want to control pace in this game. We think we have the advantage there. You mentioned that many of your adjustments come within the game. How do you think you guys did relative to what your game plan was versus when you were originally like what are your first adjustments? What are you noticing? What stood out to you in this game?
We were pretty base for the first 3 quarters. And I think it was a 3 point game. I think the girl hits a big 3 pointer at the end of the third quarter to send us into some momentum, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Yeah, she mentioned this. You're right. Yeah.
And then we went, instead of it being a 2-2-1 Wahlberg run and jump type,
Right.
we went more to, we put a player on the ball and or we double teamed their primary ball handler. And so we made some press adjustments and that was something honestly we hadn't even practiced. It was just, I thought it was something we could do to disrupt them and be different because we wanted to get the ball out of their primary ball handlers' hands.
Right.
And we actually kind of went to, if you will, if it makes sense looking at it, it was like a box and one full court.
That's interesting.
So we
So
took the
instead
player
of it being
guarding.
like a diamond press, you kind of tilted it a little bit, became sort of
We
like
we 2-1-1 behind it pretty
right,
much, and we tell her you're not in rotations. So if she passes and she's supposed to go run and trap, she's not gonna go. She's just gonna stay locked on that player, and we're gonna say post whoever it is going to have to get you into your sets in their offense because they were a very set oriented team. They
right,
weren't a dribble drive-ish team.
right.
So we wanted to disrupt them. And that's part of our defensive philosophy is if we allow a team to run their sets, we're not doing our job. We need to make them play like us. We need to make them be a basketball player, put the ball on the floor and make plays, not let them run their sets.
On the bench, are there metrics that you are tracking that dictate success or failure of your press? Like, are you guys counting deflections or like what are you tracking basically on the bench?
It was our first season there, and we
Right,
started late, and there was the head coach and myself on the bench. I did the defense and the offense. I installed everything, and he subbed and he made some adjustments, but for the most part, the X's and O's I was responsible for in the in-game adjustments.
right,
But I didn't have a person on the bench. I would normally like to have a chart that dictates, okay, first pass went here. How did they break it? And then it would tell me, it would help me understand what players on the floor or where we're struggling in the press,
right,
help them. So what we kind of started just doing in game was telling them if they throw it to the inbounder and they throw it back, throw it to a player and they throw it back to the inbounder. If they've done that like 3 times in a row, we can't allow that to happen. Don't let them beat the press the same way 3 times in a row. So now you either got to get a little bit more aggressive and take that away, or do something different so that they're not getting a beat and a rhythm on how to break it.
gotcha, gotcha. Do you remember at all what you would have said to your players, say at like halftime or the end of a quarter, in terms of coaching feedback? What kind of stuff uh, are you separating that they need to need to correct and make better, and what kinds of things are you saying we're doing really well, keep doing them?
I think what we were focusing on was being aggressive and trying to take the ball to the rim. But if the big stepped over, stop trying to force shots over the 6'3" girl because she's just going to block it.
Right,
Um, so we were being, our shot selection wasn't very good, and then we were allowing them to pass versus the press.
right,
And we didn't like that, so we wanted to make them have to dribble the ball. So it was talking about the pressure on the ball and not making them feel comfortable getting a negative turn, getting their body shoulders turned away from the basket,
Right.
and because we were not making fatigue a factor for their point guard. She was able to just, I call it window shop, where they can put the ball above their head and look down the
Yeah.
floor. We don't want to allow them to do that. So we weren't getting very good ball pressure. So we talked about ball pressure and shot selection, which is probably majority of the talks at halftime.
Yeah. So for me, I think two of the biggest keys to winning a basketball game, especially at the high school level, in my experience, have been shot selection, like you said, and defensive transition. What are your instructions about shot selection? Like, do you guys use the real, the typical pyramid of like, rim first, three, then in between? But like, are there other things that you're throwing in there as to like what's guarded, what's not, who can go off the dribble? What's sort of your breakdown for your players?
Well, we do subscribe to the free key or three philosophy, because if you're shooting a lot of mid range shots, not that it's a bad shot, but when people discuss it with me all the time, oh, Kobe does it, Michael Jordan does it. I'm all, yep, they're Michael Jordan and they're Kobe.
Yeah.
I'm all, I'm all. We do have caveats to the rules, so probably our best player is allowed to shoot one dribble pull ups here or there because
Right.
they've proven that they can do it, but the whole team can't do it. So we talk about getting in the paint, playing off 2 feet, and we really want to get rim shots. We're not a big floating type in the paint shots. We want to get rim layups, rhythm threes, and get to the foul line. And that's what we talk about with that. And typically, they know who our best shooters are from threes. So we almost classify them as shooters, drivers, movers. A mover is you go drive the basket and make a layup. If you can't do that, you move the ball.
Right.
Shooter, if you catch it and you have a reasonable shot, you're taking it. Drivers are driving, and hopefully we have a few on the floor that are all three of those, and that'll make us a better basketball team.
That's a good problem to have for sure. So what are those I imagine those conversations develop over time, like you said, like somebody has to prove they can do something. Do they happen mainly in, say, a practice? Is there film given to them? How do you tell a person like that shot's probably not for you?
We shoot a lot. We would usually start practice off with 100 threes,
Right.
and a goal for them was to make like 65 out of 100. It was uncontested. Nobody guarding them. Partnered up. 23s at 5 different spots. Just they shoot it, then their partner would shoot it. Because we looked at it and said, I've done this for a while. So if you have a person that makes 70 out of 100 consistently, they're
Right.
probably going to shoot 35% in a game. Divide it divide it by two, and
Right.
that's what their percentage is gonna do. For me, a good shooter in high school basketball is 35%. And that's a player that we give green lights to. If they are like 25% and below, they're a red light person for me, where that means they could shoot it, but they get two misses. If they miss twice, they have to be a racker. No more. A yellow is shoot it. Green is you could shoot it pretty much as you want within reason, time and score. Yellow is needs to be a quality shot, and then reds are you got to be wide open. But if you miss two, get to the rim.
Right. Love it. Love the breakdown. So I imagine all those shooting drills are charted,
Yeah,
and like over time, it's like, hey, this is where you
yeah.
are.
You there's a yeah. After about a week or so, 2 weeks or so, you kind of know, hey, Christian Smith on our team, hey, she wins she makes the most almost every practice. And we'll go, hey, we haven't got Christian the ball, and when you pass the ball to Christian, make sure it's on time, on target,
Right.
and you got to focus on getting her the ball where she wants it because she's the one who makes the shots.
For sure. Uh, Obviously, you're a big proponent of transition, both defensively and offensively. What percentage of the game would you rather be playing in transition versus playing in the half in, say, like your dribble drive or a quick hitter type deal?
Even though I love playing dribble drive, we're not a very good 5-on-5 team. Um,
Right.
in league, we got slowed down, and our scores dropped from 64 points a game to like in the high 40s, low 50s. So they controlled tempo and forced us to play 5-on-5. That being said, it was we started the program in September. Most
Right.
people were I, I I got the job in September. The previous coach or the new coach that hired me, we didn't start working with these girls till mid-September. So we had about 8 weeks to put in a new offensive system and a new defensive system where they were a high-low team, pounded inside,
Right.
walked the ball up the floor, and a 1-2-2 zone team. So it was a
Right.
complete culture flip. So
I
our
bet they
our
like it too.
press generated majority of our points in the preseason, and in this game that we're talking about, it won the game.
Yeah.
And the other two games we didn't press as much because we started getting more tired. There was 4 games, and we were getting worn down. It was later December, and then COVID hit us. But they controlled the tempo, made it a low scoring game. Those games were in the both of those games we only scored in the low 40s.
Right.
The other two, this one we ended up scoring 70. So the tempo factor and the pressing, we were generating steals and turnovers in this game. I think we may have turned them over about 25, 26 times.
Wow.
The other ones, I think it might have been only like 12, 13. And we played a little bit more half court philosophy and took the press. We didn't press the entire game.
Right.
So pressing for us, I mean, I always say when people ask this, you got to be able to. It's probably 33% rule, 33% off your defense, 33% maybe in transition, and then 33% out of half court. So if you can generate that type of thing, I mean, transition's transition. So when you look at that, you're probably looking at 66% because your defense is hopefully getting you out in transition,
Right.
and then make or miss off of a rebound you're trying to score. So in our practices, probably an hour and 15 minutes is transition playing, like full court aspect, and then probably we spend about 15 minutes on half court type stuff. So we're really trying to play out of transition probably 66% of the time if my math's right with the 33-33. So
Yeah. That's actually a pretty good ratio at the high school level for sure. I think it inverts more as you get higher. But I think that's a beautiful number there. That being said, what are some of your, like, I love dribble drive. I think it's a
mm,
beautiful offense to implement with a team that is trying to play fast, trying to get more possessions,
yeah,
trying to convert from transition into a half court seamlessly. What
yeah.
are some of your triggers or cues that get you out of transition and into dribble drive? What are you teaching there?
Well, we're trying to advance the ball up the floor. So if we go up the street or across the street terminology, they can drive baseline or drive middle.
Right.
So right there, the basic philosophy is they just got to know the penetration rules. We're
Okay.
we're right into it. So there's no secondary break. There's none of that. So if we don't have that, and now our point guard's getting across the middle of the court and what people would refer to as the breakdown down zone, decision zone for them, and you're off guard, if you will, trailer, are making some decisions. If they're ahead of the ball, if that trailer is kind of ahead of them, I just
Yep.
want them to cut through to create that gap so now they have space to attack.
Right.
Now, if somebody's plugging the nail or in back in the paint, we're probably going to swing it to the trailer and get into some pass cutting action before the attack takes place. We have calls for that, but as the season progresses, it should end up becoming, oh, we did this, 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 it's an automatic that it became that.
I
But
love that.
early on, it's calls. So if the referee blows their whistle, if you will, and we walk it up, that call is there to initiate because the defense is back. And I think that's where people go wrong with dribble drive is they only just want to keep it in their point guard's hands and initiate it from that
Right.
slot attack, and they're not getting into passing. And when people talk dribble drive or drive in space, whatever proponent, I'm almost trying to stop saying the words and just say drive and kick offenses or whatever you want to call it, because drive in space is similar to dribble drive,
Right.
but the concepts, but some of the things they do a little bit more passing and moving of players before they put the ball on the floor. So um, that's that. I hate that it's called dribble drive motion. To be honest with you, I think Vance was Asa, and then when he was putting out his videos, it was dribble drive attack.
Right.
If you're just dribble driving or dribble moving, you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
but the triggers are kind of we want to get the ball as quickly down the floor as possible, and take advantage of two players back, one player back, and play out of that. If our point guard is dribbling up and having to make that pass across and then move, you're playing five. Now you're basically playing 5-on-5. We want to involve our wings and let them either shoot it or baseline penetration, tee up, drift pass to the corner, middle drive, backdoor cut out of the other corner type actions that are just out of our natural organic dribble drive concepts. So scramble drill, the 11-man break that
Yep.
people is big for that. It's just a continuous 3-on-2 drill
Yep.
is great for that. Teaching point guard getting the ball on an outlet on the move, taking one dribble, throwing. Vance called it scramble drill. I think other people call it 11-man break. So
I just call it
that's a
3v2.
great drill for to teach that progression drill. That you can search. You probably find it on Mike Neighbors' YouTube channel. Progression drill, 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3. That's probably our favorite. If you ask the girls, that's probably their favorite drill to do because
Right.
they're playing.
Yep.
We had to condition this. Can we scrimmage? Come on, that's a scrimmage. You're
You're
playing.
playing.
We're
100%.
playing to a point. We put a score up there saying winners, losers type of thing. But unless they're playing 5-on-5, you know this. They don't
Right.
think small sided games or anything is scrimmaging. They don't see it unless you say, hey, let's throw the ball up in the middle and play to 7.
Right.
They don't think that's scrimmaging. So it was kind of funny to experience that.
It's interesting because I play a tremendous amount in practice as well, and I had a player the other day tell me like, all we do is play, and I'm like, what is the problem? Like, what are we saying? Like, we're getting better and we're learning stuff and we're getting you the opportunity to play. Where's the problem there? So yeah.
I almost want to rename dribble drive or any of these conceptual offenses nowadays, the read and react and
Right.
drive in space, conceptual offense, dribble drive. I guess you can put all those in the same realm to the DMO, the decision making offense. I mean, because that's bottom line is that's player with the ball picks it up. Other players are responding to it. Do I cut back door? Do I come get it? What do the other players not involved on the action on the other side do? That it's bottom line. That's what they all of those combined are. It's and it's based out of a spacing template of where you put your players.
Right. I agree. That's interesting. The randomization of it with some sort of order and making the reactions as to what's happening basically. So last one I got before we get into a little bit of film.
Okay.
With your preparation method, do you do anything that is like a review of this is what I gave them information wise or game plan wise? This is what happened. Either we executed really well or there was a disconnect between what I was giving them and they put in. Do you do anything that's sort of like a review, both of your players and of the information that you guys provide?
Haven't really done it, but it's a great idea. I think I need to evaluate it. A couple years ago, I used to have the camera person zoom into the timeouts and stuff
Mhm.
to see how the players were, like if eyes were on, players were in the
Right.
stands. Because I'm so focused on diagramming on a board and giving them the information in a 20-second, 30-second chunk, um, that helped a lot and helped organize like the eyeball situation and realized, okay, they came out of the huddle and they didn't do what I said. It was because Johnny was not not there, and it was more like first 5 seconds getting all their eye contact,
Right.
and now they're engaged. So I like your idea of reviewing it and doing that.
Love it. I actually stole it from somebody who did my show, just going through writing sort of like a post game eval as to not only like did we execute well, but also was what I gave them correct. If they had gone through the game plan properly, did I give them the tools to be in there and really be able to do what they need to do well? So I got film unless anybody has some questions. Basically, I got about 11 or 12 clips from this game. Coach,
Okay.
like I said, I'll go through, I'll read out my notes, I'll try to fumble through a description for anybody who's listening and not watching, and then all yours sort of tell me what you see. This one is first play of the game. Playback speed okay for you?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. So this one, it looks like we're right into a dribble drive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dribble drive offense here. Excuse me. We got a dribble at. We got a backdoor cut. It gets fumbled, and it ends up in a help ball. Talk to me about what you guys were looking to establish right off the bat. Talk to me if it went the way that you were hoping for it to go, and without being married to the result, of course. Talk to me about what you would correct. Weak side motion or cutters, anything like that.
There wasn't a call. I'm actually happy to see it. To be honest with you, I haven't seen them cut back door very much all season. But dribble at, so she dribbles to the wing. We don't really like that too much, but the rule is if you're dribbled at, you cut back door.
Right.
So on this now, why it was stolen was our post player is supposed to flash, call it a tee
Okay.
up. So if she came to like the middle like volleyball line area or whatever and flashed there,
Yep.
the player that stole the ball was hers, was the post player or the person guarding the player
Right.
on the block. And we've talked about we discussed that with our players that it won't be the person that you beat, it will be that player. So the other player needs to flash, and it's the concept of not having three in a row.
Right.
So the defense is lined up basically. If you look at the defense, it's almost looking like they're in a 2-3 zone. Um, they wouldn't have had a great way of defending that. So the pass was good. Girl kind of fumbles it a little bit. So now what has to happen for us to be successful in that is that the post was teed up. She'd have an opportunity to throw it to her or throw it, and the opposite corner should be in the dead corner for a drift pass.
So
Other than
that's
that,
interesting because I was actually going to ask you about that. I noticed. Uh, Let me get my
and this is probably what is this? This is probably our sixth or seventh game of the season.
right.
So they're still learning as we're going, and we're in season, so there's not a lot of practice to polish up stuff at this point.
So this is sort of the action that I see happening. You mentioned that this opposite player
Mm-hmm.
needs to stay dead corner. So over
Yep.
here, what are your penetration principles for the perimeter players? Because when I was looking at this, I was wondering if you bring both of them in this direction, typically almost the concept of strings I've heard before.
Yep.
Uh, what are you telling them to do?
Are you talking all five players or
The three specifically that are outside of the 3-point line.
okay?
Other
So
than
what we're telling the post player, the one on the block, is if they see the player cut back door, you're flashing.
yeah,
The player, the slot up at the top, she's in good position. Now the other player probably in the corner is probably lifting for like a skip,
Yeah.
but once the pass is thrown, they need to readjust to become in their
Adjust.
vision for what most people would refer to as a drift pass. So
Right.
baseline drive, baseline pass, drift opposite corner, and then when this pass is made by her, we need to get in her what we refer to as six military terms. So she needs to get like behind her because
Right.
most players will go attract to the ball. So she'd be a safety valve right behind her,
Gotcha.
the player that passed it.
Love it. I,
And
I
then
got one
she's
for you.
at the top. At the top, we're calling it window. She's
Okay.
finding the open area. Like in this situation, she probably could have cut right down the middle because every look how all five players are getting attracted to the ball.
Right. Love it. I got one for you. I got a gift card for you if you know the answer to this, because I don't.
Uh oh.
Where does the term tee up come from? I have a hypothesis, but I'm curious to know if there is a real like answer.
The on some courts you see the volleyball line,
Yep.
and then the baseline intersection up. It forms a T.
That's what my hypothesis was. I've heard it a lot up here that it sort of forms like a T in there,
Yeah,
but um, I don't know. Nobody's ever been able to explain it to me. So since
that's the only. I think it's because of Vance loved lines like volleyball lines and all that stuff to make things for your players to know where to go.
right,
So I don't know if anyone's ever asked him. So, but that's my answer to it. I don't know
so
if it's correct.
if my hypothesis is the same as yours, I'm going with it. I'll buy you a coffee sometime, Mark.
All
All
right.
right. So next one I got this is pressing from the beginning. You're in your 2-2-1. This is a quick, easy steal from you, but just we talked a little bit about what you're trying to do in terms of your directive, in terms of
Mhm.
gain extra possessions, speed them up, play at the pace that you want to. Talk to me a little bit about your rotations and how high you're meeting the ball on the floor, and then obviously beneficial outcomes. So for anybody who's listening, they inbound the ball to the opposite side of the floor, so the offensive right side of the floor. They get met by
Oh,
aggressive
wait.
defender, try to throw it into the center, it gets stolen,
It
left-handed.
were it worked out, but because not very many teams inbound the ball on the left side, if
Right,
you will. So they got confused who's strong and weak. We call it
right,
strong and weak before it's inbounds. So they're doing opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. The one girl on the left on the one side is supposed to be denying ball side, and the other girl should be like on the lane line right there. Because if you get too stretched, they're just going to throw the ball back to the inbounder. But they do go to weak side, and it worked out for us because it did get pressure right away.
right.
But she's 6'3", and she could see over 5'7". But our middle row defender, what we refer to as the reader, is doing a great job of being in her quarters and elevated up the floor. Our rule there is if she feels she can get it, she's going to fly through it. If she misses it, she misses it. We wanted to get that aggressive outcome where we figure that's pressure zone for us. So pressure zone is 28 feet to the baseline in the backcourt.
Gotcha.
And if we make a mistake there, we can recover in
And
time.
if
Yeah.
you make that mistake, I assume you probably have ordered rotations to sort of fill.
We would make a we would it's an umbrella call and everybody it's like a 911 emergency. Everybody needs to sprint and sprint. The other two players need to go form a two-man umbrella, top of the
Right.
key basket, and we get back into our principles there of no rhythm three, no layup.
Got it. Next one is defending their half court. So it was one of the few actions that they were actually able to get to. I think they were happy to actually be able to run something. So they walk it over. You guys have taken your press off a little bit here. There's about 4.5 minutes left in that first. And they get into a four high. Basically, they enter to the one forward on the offensive right elbow.
Mm-hmm.
They get a back cut out of it. They get a layup that sort of fumbles in.
Yep.
Talk to me in an ideal world. How would you play it? And what are you saying feedback wise to your ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen?
so we're in our umbrella defense here, so we should have ball pressure. Ball pressure for us is arm length away.
Right,
So we would extend an arm and say, hey, can you touch the ball?
right,
Not anything crazy, but if you're gonna watch this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But she's probably what, a good 3 feet off of her, and what we didn't do a good job of is we don't care about the wing pass. So we're if they're out there wanting it, we don't care. We're not denying wings. So she's kind of chasing that player. And in the ideal world, we'd want a 3/4 that high post pass. 6'3" takes up a lot of real estate, made it hard for that girl. But we got caught ball watching, like
right.
everybody. So as soon as that ball went, everybody should have jumped to midline on the weak side, and that's why they got to lay it. No ball pressure, no 3/4 deny. Those are the things that we would want to have improve on that one.
So on the pass, would I be correct in saying like if this was the rim line, those two need to be moving towards it and
They need to be, yeah. Our rules are the same kind of in the half court, full court with the press. We use the quarter system defensively, so they need to jump to quarters.
okay, gotcha.
So I
Um,
probably, with my arms folded at the end of the bench, would be able to be telling him get to quarters.
just just expressing dissent with the outcome. Like, nope, don't like it.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit of a dribble drive clip, so we bring it up into the offensive right slot, we reverse it, and then we get this real typical uh, cut and dribble over the back,
Yep.
almost like a flip action where we're attacking. Do you give them targets to attack? I noticed the pull under of the girl in the dunkers or on the block that was originally on the new strong side and moving to the new help side.
Yep.
Uh, talk to me about what you see in here. Are your wings doing what they're supposed to be doing? Is number 11 supposed to get a piece as she's brushing through? And how do you feel about the outcome?
Um, the the post didn't start where they were supposed to start, but she got to where she was supposed to be. Corner could have been a little lower to start with. What we teach there is we don't really tell them to get a piece of them, but we tell them if they're in your way, you need to keep moving and kind of run with your hands up, because
Right,
if you stop there, you're going to get called for an illegal screen.
right,
So if you will, for people that aren't familiar with that, it's kind of like the illegal pick play in football.
right,
What we talked about Kobe's and stuff when floaters, we allowed this girl to do this. She's a junior for us, and she led us in scoring. She's right now getting some D2 looks. And what we're trying to do was we were trying to put the ball in our best decision makers' hands here and be aggressive on their big, because they elected to play us man to man. And I thought it was interesting that she's a post player, and we do have a post player sitting on the block, that they elected to have her guard her on the
yeah, it is
perimeter,
interesting. I would agree. I think mobility wise, there's probably an
where she
advantage.
could have been the help defender there, making her shoot a floater over 6'3". So, because she's 5'11", there's about a 4-inch difference
Right.
between the two. She has a big game in this game. I think she had 28.
Guys. If they switch this action, do your teaching points change at all? Are you still trying to get downhill and
Yeah,
score?
I mean, this is where we adopted some drive in space this year instead of just pure dribble drive. What we would probably do if they switched that, we would look for her to throw the ball to the corner
Right.
and just dive her to the block and post her.
Gotcha.
And then we would play off of that. So if that player drove baseline, she would escape above. If they drove middle, she would escape to that corner below. She would just read how. So it would give her an option to drive it and score, a kick out for a three for that player, and now a post up opportunity. And now if she drives and her player helps, she's now going to get the ball back. So she was our best player, and I think what we were calling there was fingers, for Doug Novak fans. And it's just that traditional 45 cut, and
Right.
then putting the ball in your best player's hands and let them go.
For sure. For sure. Do you find that with the dribble drive, it's an easy one to implement? Like players like it, they understand the push pull value of it. They are capable of implementing it quickly. Has that been your experience?
It's easy to implement, but based upon your team's IQ, it will take how long they understand it. I always want to tell people to get to the tempo that we want to play and the speed. It takes a year. Probably by the time you hit league in our area, so league's 10 games, and you've probably played 18 non-league games. So you're coming in. You played November, all of December, and now you're heading into league. They should have a pretty good grasp and understanding of it. But I, I mean, I know some people just think concepts of it in this. I don't think it's a secondary offense. I think it's something that you put in first, and then if you're running anything else, it works because now your players put the ball on the floor, and now they have some organization to run it.
I like it. The
That
next one is
that's the base. I think it's a good base offense, or if you will, a breakdown offense. Do your
yeah,
players know what to do when the ball's put on the floor?
yeah. The next one is another dribble drive clip as well, but it's attacking from the wing. So
Okay.
basically similar type question. So we come offensive right slot, we cut out, creating a gap. Then we continue the reversal and we try to increase that gap. Same player going right,
Uh,
attacks what becomes a double gap and is able to get through her strong hand, evens the
we we
offense.
ran the play wrong, but it was a call. It was my buddy Kirk Gelsdorf's play wave, and it's one of our that's what we would normally do if we don't call it, where we would go opposite like she did, and create that double gap. But we wanted a double cut, a double blur, if you will, or a double blur, what we would refer to as a blur type screen, where that player that passed it, the second player, would cut underneath her, and it would create like a super gap.
He's going
So
as well, basically.
so yeah, exactly. And we wanted her, like what you're asking, we wanted her to throw a hands and almost clip her hip
Yep.
and get her down here. We're really picking on the big, to be quite honest here. We went 5 out, so we put her in the stretch. So we had 2 slots, 2 corners, and we put her in the 45.
Right.
And we went 5 out and said, okay, can you guard her and get to the paint? Anyone helped? It was a kick out, and that's what we were trying to do. So she did cut away, which was good, but it was an actual set call.
And with that set call, if she had created the super gap, as you said, it looks like 11 is heading for the corner. This
Mm-hmm.
girl here that goes away, I think it's number one. Where would
Yes.
she be exiting to? Is she also going for the corner? So there's three in
Okay,
behind.
so the first one would have been above her. So what would happen is for spacing is one. So if she drove to the paint, you would have the first. You would have one, and this would be your third cutter. So one would be right behind her in the like lane line behind her.
Right.
Two would be in the 45 like window skip pass,
Yep.
and one would be in the drift corner. Or three. I'm sorry. One would be. One was her number, but
Yeah.
as you're labeling it, three would be in the corner,
Yeah.
two would end up in the 45, and the first girl in the corner would make her cut where she's spaced right behind her as she's entering the block area.
Love it.
So so 22 would be here, coach, on the lane line. One would be corner, and our 11 would be on the 45, and
Got
four is exactly where she's supposed to be.
What do I got? I got defending their baseline out of bounds. I'm wondering if you had heard anything or gotten anything previous and how you feel you do against it. So they're basically in a 4 high. Why I wrote scouted instead of scouted. That's nice. Good. Uh, they're in a four high alignment. You guys are playing man, and then basically it's like a curl over top by the first girl who comes to the weak side block, and then curl over top from the third girl who comes strong side. You guys are matched, in my opinion. They get nothing out of the primary action. So my question is, first, do you have it scouted? And then second, how do you think you did in play after the play actions when they try to get a little bit of penetration out of it?
Um, Thought we defended it well. Four's primary goal for us as the person guarding it is to prevent a weak side block layup. So if
Right,
they throw it strong side, she now attaches because a lot of people will send that inbounder back to a corner for a shot.
right,
Think they do a pretty good job of she stayed with her, and then our whole thing is we don't want to give up layups. If it goes out, we're fine. Now our rule is she's a little bit above it. If it's free throw line extender and below, we're no middle team, so she probably should have had her feet more squared to her. She's allowing middle right now.
right.
Other than that, I think we do a pretty. And she leveled her off, and there's not happy with that one. We talked about
Gamble.
going through it on the other side of the court on the press when we got the steal. In our umbrella area, we don't want to gamble like that. That pass guard to guard really is not going to affect us too much.
Right.
And now this girl does a good job of contesting, and we force a mid range. So overall, we did a pretty good job.
Love it. And then I put in defending the duck in here. This is another one of their baseline sets. It's a
Yep.
different one. Basically, it starts like a line. The second girl pops to the strong side corner. The first girl makes sort of like a little baby curl to the opposite help side block. And then the third girl just backs up. And then the inbounder ducks in, uses her size, gets an over the top and
Mm.
one. Talk to me about what your concepts would be, how you think they defended, and if this was the matchup indeed that you wanted.
Um, Foot speed wise, that's the matchup we want. Later in this game, we go with our 24 that's guarding the corner and guards her and pretty much is able to front her and because she's more mobile and
Right.
doesn't get her touches. But girl makes a nice swim move there. What I would like is 24 to go raid it. So she should have opened up with her butt to the baseline, palms out. They weren't a very good 3-point shooting team, so she shouldn't be locked on to her.
Right.
So as soon as that ball hit the floor, it should have been a double from the passer, and then everybody else needs to be quarters. So if she Laker cut, if you will, or whatever cut you want to call that, into the paint, we'd be able to body up and prevent the drop off pass.
Love it. As far as the contest, what do you guys teach? I mean, obviously, this girl on the low block, number 35, is giving up height.
Yeah, she's 5. She's probably 5'9", 5'10". So yeah,
She swings towards the ball. Do you guys teach anything in
no.
terms of the contest, to like going away from, or just covering eyes, or like what's sort of your teaching point
Should
there?
be just hands up, wall up. She lands, turn and block.
Gotcha.
We're not going to block her shot. We're not going to block her shot. So I mean,
Yeah.
she's lucky. She's lucky she didn't get called for a foul.
This one I ask all the time. It was one of the better examples I could find. I think we touched on shot selection a little bit for sure when we were talking, but basically we come down and time and score is a factor here. This is the end of the half, but we come down offensive right slot and we have to pull a contested three. It gets blocked partially. Like I said, time and score. But what's your viewpoint on transition threes? And can everybody shoot them if it's yes?
My viewpoint, typically, if that's thrown to number one, it's the one in the corner that's asking for the ball. She was our best shooter, so she's letting it fly. 4 is a decent shooter on the other side. Time and score, like you said, but most of the time I'd be happy if she advanced it. But majority of the time, we're saying we want a paint touch before a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that rule is for everybody. Your best shooters as well, or
Number one, pretty much. If we threw the ball at her, I was fine with her shooting them.
love it. I think I got about two or three more. Coach, bear with me. Defending their second cut. I think I have two clips of this, and I think this is the exact same thing you were talking about with your super gap and your second
Mhm.
cut. So we get a wing entry, we get a cut through, and then we get almost like a shuffle cut from the opposite wing. They hit that, they get a layup out of it, and then I think there was a second one. I might not have put it in, but this happened a couple times in the game. So
Oh yeah, I
how would
remember
you
it.
ideally like to defend this? Because it's a tricky one. Once that first one goes through, your help gets
Oh.
moved.
I call that hugger defense, or hugger becoming a sniffer. Balls in the wing. She should be jumping the ball in the quarters. No way should the girl be, both of them. No way should they be face cut. And then 11 turns her back. Once her player, the one underneath, she should be the one in help. Once that player hits the middle and cuts, her butt should be the baseline, and now she's the help defender.
Perfect. Are you yelling and screaming, or like how do you implement the change
It
when?
was it was a unique experience. I hadn't been an assistant coach in like 12 years.
Right.
So I'm the one sitting at the very end of the bench because I get more of an angle to see the whole floor than being right next to the coach that's standing there. It was driving me nuts early in the season. I couldn't see the floor, so I said I'm going to go to the end so I could see the floor.
Right.
I I'm yelling, "Don't get face cut. You got to see ball," is what I'm yelling at. Yeah.
And
And at
with
this
this,
point, yeah, we're down 8, I think. After this goes
uh,
in, it's 41-35.
yeah, you're right.
And we end up winning by 20.
There
Ouch.
you go. This face cut. Do you teach them to make contact and prevent that cut, or do you just want them to
I
be?
want them, if, if they jump to the ball, I want them to see your sternum, your chest area, so that they have to almost go behind you. We want them to rear cut, not face cut.
Right. Gotcha. I think we have. This is your baseline out of bounds. I actually used to run this when I was at York University on the women's side as well. It's works against man and zone. It's a really good one. It's a four across pretty much,
Yep.
where the two in the center just basically brush off of each other. So you got one coming ball side, one going opposite. The one going opposite in this not only gets a layup, but I think you guys actually got back to back layups out of this, if I remember correctly. Uh, talk to me about teaching points. Talk to me about if that cross doesn't work and what you're looking for in terms of how to get it
It,
in.
there's a couple of reads off of it. If they're in zone, which they may have.
Here it is. The second one's with the zone.
Okay, so it basically makes them a decision because you're 4 across the bottom. It pretty much puts them into man, if
Right.
you will. And so say one of those players drops to the corner, makes 4 along the baseline. One player is only going to cut, and the other one's going to pop. So now you're
Right.
just throwing it straight to the top. So it's kind of reading what they're doing. Sometimes they'll actually screen for each other, and then roll if it's true man.
Right.
But yeah, so it puts them in a tough spot. Four kind of reads, or I was actually telling her I think to elevate there to try to get that curl out of the corner because I could see how wide she was to get the layup, and then we're really again teaching concepts more than a play,
Right.
teaching them how to read defense, and be basketball players.
Love it. Love it. And if you can't get into either of the two, uh, what's sort of like your safety and play after the play if that happens?
Strong side's probably moving up to the wing. The other two players are probably emptying. If one's the post, they're going to be in the dunker. The other one's going to do it, and it opens up a gap so they can almost just attack. Or if it's a zone, if she throws the strong side, she dribbles up. That bottom defender usually goes with her, and the inbounder steps right back to the corner and amazes you how much they're wide open for a three.
Love it. We've reached the end, sir.
All
I know you
right.
have to share. I want to take a second and genuinely thank you for so quickly being available to sit down with me. But I I appreciate everything you do with system basketball. I mean, I get your emails. I tune in when you had the podcast going. I tune in when you're doing Zooms, and I'm a fan. I appreciate
Appreciate it.
you sharing the game and making others better. And I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and, show that you could actually coach too. That it's not just all teaching, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, it's a passion I've done and appreciate it. I found doing it. I went from March 20th to January 1st with it, doing it when I was working my previous job.
right.
January, I got fed up. I think the date was January 6th, 2021. Said adios, amigos. And I've basically been running system basketball and as my livelihood, if you will, and then coaching now. So been blessed to help some coaches and get acknowledged here or there from people and providing a platform for youth all the way up for quality instruction and allowing other coaches like myself that some people may not have ever heard of. I call it celebrity coaches, if you will, a platform to share because I think COVID brought everybody together with sharing. I think basketball coaches had the stigma of, oh, I don't want to give up that play or I don't want to
Right.
do this because they might find it. I'm the opposite of it to an extent. Is you can take all the plays I have, but you
You
got
got
to
to beat me on the
or
court.
you know that they're coming. You got to execute to stop it,
Yep.
or because there's so many ways to play the game, and that's just kind of. And then I love being on these. I love what you do. Yours is a little bit different. Never been on a podcast where we kind of break down the film, and I kind of enjoy. Makes me think of some things, and I know I did some film studies with system basketball where there were private Zooms where I had like Dave Arsenal, Doug Porter on nights, and didn't record those events because they were socials.
Right.
There might have not been a beverage or so involved when we were doing those, so
It was an adult
it
beverage.
probably wasn't appropriate to record those. But breaking down game film like this, it probably hopefully helps your audience and everybody. And if my whole goal with anything I ever do is if they can listen to me or coach I have on and learn one thing, I think I've done a service to the coaching community.
Yeah, I appreciate your efforts. I really do, and I know how hard it is to be a sharer and do it consistently over a period of time. So, my hat goes off to you, and I thank you sincerely. For everybody listening, thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you keep getting value out of it, and I'll see you guys next week. Mark, thanks. Appreciate you.
Thank you.